The night hung heavy over the village, the moon hiding behind thick clouds, casting shadows that slithered between the crooked huts. The wind whispered through the skeletal trees, carrying the faint sound of footsteps that did not belong to anyone innocent. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a lonely cry that seemed to echo the fear in the hearts of those who dared walk the dark paths after sundown. Ilara moved quietly along the edge of the forest. Her cloak, worn and patched in several places, clung to her shoulders. She was an Omega, poor and unnoticed, someone the villagers dismissed as timid and fragile. But Ilara knew the truth. Courage did not live in birthright, nor in power. It lived in the heart, and hers burned quietly, fiercely, like embers waiting for wind. Tonight, the embers sparked. A sudden scream tore through the darkness. Ilara's blood ran cold, but she did not hesitate. Without thinking, she sprinted toward the sound, her boots barely making a sound against the soft earth. The scream repeated, higher, more desperate, followed by a child's sob. Ilara rounded the corner to a small clearing. There, in the weak glow of the moon, she saw a group of rough men surrounding a child. The boy, no older than 6, clutched a small wooden doll to his chest, his face pale with terror. One of the men raised a cruel knife. Instinct took over. Ilara's heart raced, but fear did not paralyze her. She scanned the surroundings quickly. A fallen branch, a loose stone, anything could be used. She picked up a rock and hurled it with all her strength. It struck the nearest rogue in the back of the head, causing him to stumble. The boy's eyes widened in surprise, and he took a step back. The other men cursed, turning toward her. Ilara's hands were trembling, but she forced her voice to be steady. "Leave him!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the trees. "Now!" The rogues laughed, but there was a pause in their cruelty. Ilara did not wait. She grabbed the boy's small hand and pulled him behind a tree. She whispered quickly, "Run with me! Stay quiet! Don't look back!" The boy nodded, trusting her immediately, because he had no one else. Together they ran through the forest, ducking under low branches, leaping over roots, moving like shadows. The rogues pursued them, shouting threats and curses. Ilara's heart pounded in her chest. Her lungs burned, but she could not stop. Not now, not when a life depended on her. She led the boy toward a small creek she knew, hoping the water and fog would hide them. Finally, they reached the creek, breathless. The boy clung to her, shivering, not just from the cold, but from fear. Ilara knelt beside him, brushing dirt and leaves from his hair. "You're safe now," she said softly. "I won't let them hurt you." Before they could rest, a sharp whistle cut through the night. One of the rogues had found them. Ilara grabbed a thick branch, holding it like a staff, and positioned herself in front of the boy. The first man lunged, but Ilara sidestepped, swinging the branch with surprising strength. The man fell to the ground, groaning. Another came at her from behind, and she spun, connecting her elbow with his chest. The boy's eyes were wide, awe and fear mixing in them. Ilara's arms ached, and a sudden blow caught her in the side, sending her crashing to the ground. The boy screamed. Pain lanced through her ribs, but she gritted her teeth. She could not fail now. From the corner of her eye, she saw a shadowed path leading to a cliff above the creek. With a surge of determination, she grabbed the boy's hand again. "This way!" she hissed, dragging him toward the edge. The rogues hesitated, unsure of pursuing them up the slippery rocks. Ilara climbed first, holding out her hand to the boy. With a little struggle, he followed. They reached a small plateau, hidden by thick ferns. Ilara sank to the ground, gasping, her body screaming in pain. The boy leaned against her, trembling. She held him close. "Shh. It's over," she whispered. But she knew it wasn't. The rogues would not give up so easily. Then, she noticed something strange. The boy was not just scared. He looked relieved but also curious, as if he sensed something unusual in her. Ilara tilted her head, studying him. There was a calmness in his eyes, a quiet strength that did not belong to an ordinary child. Before she could think more, a soft sound made her freeze. A low growl, not from the wolves she had heard earlier, but from a different source. Something powerful, commanding, and unearthly. From the shadows emerged a tall figure, cloaked in dark fabric that seemed to drink in the moonlight. His presence filled the clearing, making the trees seem smaller, the night itself quieter. His eyes were piercing, silver and sharp, cutting through the fog like twin blades. Ilara instinctively moved in front of the boy. She did not recognize the man. But she knew immediately. This was no ordinary person. There was a weight to him, a force that demanded respect and fear at the same time. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The man did not answer immediately. He stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the boy. Ilara followed his eyes, and then she realized the truth. This child, this small, trembling child, was more than he seemed. The man knelt slowly, his presence intimidating yet strangely gentle. He spoke, voice low, but it carried across the clearing. "My son," he said. Ilara froze. The words hit her like ice. She had saved a child, but she had no idea whose child it truly was. The boy looked up at the man and his expression softened. Recognition passed between them, silent and powerful. You are here for him?" Ilara asked cautiously. The man's eyes flicked to her, assessing, studying. "And you saved him." His tone was not anger nor accusation, but a strange mix of surprise and something else, something deeper that made her stomach tighten. Ilara could not speak. She had acted out of instinct, not knowing the child's importance. And now, she had drawn the attention of someone extraordinary, someone dangerous, someone powerful. The man finally stood fully, the moonlight catching the edges of his cloak. He radiated authority, strength, and something terrifyingly magnetic. The rogues, still lurking at the edge of the forest, sensed the shift. They faltered, fear creeping into their eyes as the figure's presence alone seemed to push them back. Ilara hugged the boy tighter, feeling a mixture of relief and dread. She had saved him, yes. But now, she was entangled in a world far beyond her understanding. A world of kings, secrets, and dangers she could not yet imagine. The boy whispered softly, "Thank you, miss." The man's gaze softened slightly, though the power behind it did not waver. "You have courage," he said, "more than most will ever know. But this was not meant to be. You have stepped into a fate far larger than you realize." Ilara's mind spun. Fate? Kings? Secrets? She had only wanted to help a child, and now she was caught in something vast, unstoppable, and unknown. The rogue leader appeared at the tree line, fury in his eyes. He raised his weapon, ready to strike. But before he could, the man stepped forward, and with a single gesture, the leader fell to the ground, disarmed and terrified. Ilara's heart pounded. The power of this man was unlike anything she had seen, like the forest itself obeyed him. She felt both awe and fear, a mixture that left her trembling. The man looked at her again, his silver eyes piercing through the shadows. "You have done well, Omega. But this is only the beginning. You have entered a world of blood, power, and secrets, and now you are part of it." Ilara's hands shook as she held the boy. She wanted to ask questions, to understand what he meant, but the words caught in her throat. All she could do was nod, knowing that her life had changed forever. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying whispers of the future, danger, loyalty, and the faint stirrings of something else. Something neither fully dark nor fully light. something that would bind her heart to this man in ways she could not yet imagine. The night stretched on, silent but heavy. Ilara sat on the forest floor, holding the child close, her mind racing. The Alpha King, if that was indeed what he was, stood a few steps away, watching over them, as if deciding whether she belonged in this new world or not. And somewhere deep in her chest, a quiet ember of something stronger than fear began to glow, something that would not allow her to turn away. The night was far from over, and neither was the story that had only just begun. Ilara's arms ached, her ribs throbbed, and her legs felt like lead as she followed the tall, cloaked figure through the dense forest. The child clung to her hand, silent and trusting, unaware of the full danger they had narrowly escaped. Every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves made Ilara flinch, her heart hammering in her chest. The man walked with a strange, effortless authority, his steps silent, precise. Even in the dark, the moonlight caught his eyes, silver, sharp, and unyielding. He said nothing, only glanced at her occasionally, measuring, studying. "Where are you taking us?" Ilara finally asked, her voice low, cautious. "To safety," he replied simply, his voice calm, deep, yet carrying a power that made her shiver. "And to judgment." Ilara frowned, unsure what he meant. "Judgment? What do you mean?" The man's gaze flicked to the boy, who had dropped his doll and buried his face against Ilara's side. "You saved him," the man said, "but by doing so you have drawn attention. Attention that is dangerous, not just to you but to him as well." Ilara's throat tightened. "Dangerous? He's just a child." "Just a child?" The man's voice was soft now, almost a whisper, but it carried weight. "He is more than that. He is important." Ilara glanced at the boy. His small face peeked out from behind her arm, eyes wide and innocent. How could this little boy be important? And why did this man seem to hold the air of a king, though she could not place him? The forest began to thin, and soon they emerged into a wide clearing. In the distance, a fortress loomed, massive and dark, its towers reaching into the clouds like fingers of stone. The walls gleamed faintly under the moonlight, as if the fortress itself were alive, breathing power. Ilara's breath caught in her throat. She had heard stories of kings and their castles, but nothing she had imagined matched this. It seemed both beautiful and terrifying, ancient and unstoppable. The man led them through a large gate, guarded by warriors whose armor gleamed in the dim light. They stopped as he approached, and without a word, the guards lowered their weapons. Ilara noticed the fear and respect in their eyes. They knew who this man was. Inside, the fortress was even more overwhelming. Corridors stretched like rivers of stone, lit by torches that flickered against the high walls, tapestries depicting battles, curses and victories of long-dead kings hung along the halls. The air smelled of fire, old stone, and something else. Power. Ilara could not stop looking around, her curiosity battling the anxiety twisting in her stomach. Every step she took echoed in the empty corridors, reminding her of her smallness in this immense place. They arrived in a large hall. High ceilings arched above them, and in the center stood a throne carved from black stone. The man gestured for them to sit. The boy slid from Ilara's hands and ran toward a soft rug near the throne, but the man's sharp gaze made him pause. "You may sit," he said, finally addressing her directly. His voice was commanding, yet not cruel. "You are far from home, Omega, and yet you chose to act when others would have turned away." Ilara swallowed hard. She had never been called Omega with respect before. Usually, it was a label whispered in contempt. She straightened her back, trying to keep her fear from showing. "I only did what was right," she said quietly. "I couldn't leave him. Anyone could have been hurt." The man studied her, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if weighing the truth in her words. Courage is rare in your kind. Yet you have it. You have risked your life for someone not even your own blood. That is remarkable. Ilara's cheeks burned. Compliments from strangers, especially someone so powerful, always made her uneasy. But there was something in his eyes, a depth she could not understand, that drew her attention, something that both frightened and fascinated her. The man finally stepped back and motioned to a servant standing silently at the side of the hall. "Prepare her room," he said. "She will remain here protected until I can decide what to do with her. She has entered a world she does not yet understand." Ilara's stomach twisted. A room? Protected? She had saved the boy. She did not want to be a guest or a prisoner. She wanted to leave, to return to her small, simple life. But something in the man's presence told her she had no choice. Resistance would not save her. As she was led to her room, she noticed the guards lingering at the edges of the hall. Their hands rested on their weapons, but their eyes held respect rather than suspicion. They knew she was not ordinary, and neither did she. Her room was small but comfortable, with a soft bed, a wooden table, and a window that overlooked the forest she had crossed. For the first time in her life, Ilara felt the weight of her choices. She had acted with bravery, yes, but bravery in this world was dangerous. Here, courage alone did not guarantee safety. The boy appeared at the doorway, shy but smiling. "I'm safe, thanks to you," he whispered. Ilara smiled faintly. "Yes, and you must stay safe. That is the most important thing." He nodded and ran back to the throne room. Ilara sank onto the bed, pressing her hands to her face. She thought of her home, her village, and the quiet life she had known. Everything was gone now, replaced by a fortress, a powerful man, and a child whose importance she did not yet understand. Later, as she sat by the window, she felt a presence behind her. The man, the Alpha King, though she did not yet know his title, entered without knocking. His cloak brushed the floor, dark as midnight, and his eyes were fixed on her. "You are brave," he said, not a question, but a statement that carried weight. "But bravery alone cannot protect you here." Ilara looked at him, unsure how to respond. She felt small, fragile, yet something in his gaze pulled her forward. It was as if he could see her soul, her fears, her courage, all at once. "I only want to do what is right," she said finally, her voice steady despite her fear. "Then you will need to learn," he replied. "There are dangers here that even your courage cannot face alone, and there are truths you do not yet know. Truths about him, about the child you saved, and about yourself." Ilara's mind raced. Truths? About herself? What could she possibly not know about herself? She had lived a life of hardship and quiet perseverance, believing she knew her limits, and now she felt those limits stretch beyond what she could imagine. The man stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "You are more than you believe, Omega," he said softly, "and the choices you make here will shape not only your fate, but the fate of many, including the child you saved." Ilara's heart pounded. The weight of his words settled over her like a cloak heavier than her own. She had only wanted to help a child, to act when no one else would. Now, she felt the threads of destiny weaving around her, pulling her into a world of kings, curses, and power she had never imagined. I don't understand," she whispered. "You will," he said, turning toward the window. Outside, the forest stretched into darkness, holding secrets and dangers still lurking in the shadows. "But for now, rest. Gather your strength. You will need it. Tomorrow your journey begins in earnest." Ilara watched him leave, her mind a whirlwind of fear, awe, and a strange curiosity she could not name. The Alpha King, if that was what he truly was, had entered her life, and with him came a destiny she could not escape. As she lay down, the wind outside whispered through the trees, carrying a promise of trials, challenges, and the faint stirrings of something else. Something that would bind her heart to the king in ways she could not yet understand. And somewhere, deep in the fortress, the child she had saved slept peacefully, unaware that the fate of the kingdom, and perhaps the world, now rested in the hands of a poor Omega. Ilara closed her eyes, her heart both heavy and hopeful. Tomorrow, her life would change forever. The sun rose slowly over the dark citadel, casting long shadows across the stone towers. Inside the fortress, Ilara awoke with a start. Her body ached from yesterday's ordeal, and her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The child was safe, sleeping in a soft corner near the throne room, but the Alpha King's presence lingered in her thoughts like an unshakable shadow. She had thought she understood courage, yet every moment in his fortress reminded her how small she truly was. And yet, he had called her brave. His words echoed in her mind, stirring a strange warmth that both frightened and fascinated her. A soft knock came at her door. She turned to see a servant, quiet and respectful. "He is ready to see you," the servant whispered. Ilara nodded and followed, her cloak trailing softly across the cold stone floor. The hallway was silent, the torches flickering like tiny stars along the walls. She felt the weight of the fortress, the history it held, pressing down on her, reminding her that she had crossed into a world far beyond her own. The throne room was empty, save for the Alpha King standing by a large window, looking out at the forests beyond. His back was straight, his shoulders broad, and the silver light of dawn glinted in his eyes. He turned as she entered, and for a moment neither spoke. "You slept well?" he asked finally, his voice calm but holding a strength that made her heart flutter. Yes," she replied softly, unsure what to say. She felt small in his presence, yet she could not tear her eyes away. "Good," he said, his gaze piercing through her. "Today we must prepare for what comes next. The rogues are not the only threat. Others will come, and they will not be so easily deterred." Ilara nodded, her curiosity rising despite her fear. "Others? Who?" "The curse that haunts this land," he replied. "It has been waiting, lying in shadow, and now, because of your actions, it stirs again. You must understand, Omega, that what you did yesterday was more than bravery. It has changed the path of many lives, including your own." Ilara swallowed hard. She had acted out of instinct, out of a desire to save a child. She had not known that her actions would stir anything beyond the forest. And now she realized that this world was far more dangerous and complicated than she could have imagined. Before she could ask more, the child appeared, running toward her. "Ilara!" he cried, clinging to her skirt. "Are we safe?" "Yes," she whispered, hugging him close. "For now. But we must be careful." The Alpha King watched silently, his expression unreadable. There was a faint softness in his eyes as he observed her interaction with the child, but it was quickly replaced by the stern authority that marked him as ruler. "Ilara," he said finally, his voice low and commanding, "you will accompany me today. You must see the truth of what lies ahead." She hesitated. "Truth? About what?" "About the child," he said, his eyes narrowing slightly. "And about yourself." The words sent a shiver down her spine. She had already realized that the boy was not ordinary, but she had not imagined that she would be drawn into the secrets surrounding him. And yet, something in the king's tone made her trust him, something that told her resistance would not protect her. They moved through the fortress in silence, exiting through a secret gate that led to the forests beyond. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Birds chirped cautiously, sensing the presence of power walking among them. "Ilara," the king said as they walked, "do you understand why I have not left you to the dangers of the forest alone? I suppose because you trust me?" she asked, unsure if it was the right answer. He looked at her, and for the first time the stern mask softened. "Trust is earned, Omega, and you have earned it in ways few could." Her heart fluttered. She had never been trusted like this before, and the weight of it both comforted and frightened her. They reached a small glade where the boy had been hidden in safety by the king's loyal warriors. He ran to them immediately, and Ilara knelt to gather him in her arms. "You are safe here," she whispered. "I will not let anything happen to you." The king watched, silent but attentive, and Ilara felt his gaze on her. It was not judgmental, nor cold. It was studying her, weighing her, as if trying to understand her heart. Suddenly, a rustle in the trees alerted them. Shadows moved with unnatural speed, and a cold wind swept through the glade. Ilara felt her muscles tense. She had faced rogues before, but this was different. From the darkness emerged a figure, cloaked and hooded, carrying a strange staff. The air around them seemed to shimmer with power, and the Alpha King stepped forward immediately, placing himself between Ilara, the child, and the approaching figure. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice echoing with authority. The figure laughed softly, a sound like dry leaves scraping stone. "I am one who remembers," the figure said, "and I have come for what was taken from me." Ilara's heart raced. She did not understand the words, but she sensed the danger in them. She tightened her hold on the boy and stepped closer to the king, feeling both fear and a strange thrill. The figure raised the staff, and a wave of dark energy swept toward them. The king raised a hand, and the air itself seemed to bend to his will, stopping the attack mid-air. Ilara watched in awe, unable to look away. He was powerful beyond imagination, yet his movements were precise, controlled, almost graceful. "You will not harm him," the king said, his voice low, but carrying the weight of mountains. "Or you will face me." The figure hesitated, as if surprised by his strength. Ilara's pulse quickened. This was not a simple rogue attack. This was something older, darker, and tied to the curse the king had mentioned. The figure disappeared into the shadows, leaving only a cold wind and a faint echo of laughter. Ilara exhaled shakily, her hands trembling. "You are unharmed?" the king asked, his gaze still on her. "Yes," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her fear. He nodded slowly. "Good. But this is only the beginning. The curse will test you. It will test all of us. And soon, the truth about this child, and about you, will demand choices that cannot be undone." Ilara looked at the boy, his small face serene despite the danger. She felt a protective surge within her, stronger than any fear. She would not let harm touch him, not now, not ever. The king studied her, his eyes softened by something she could not name. "You have a heart of courage," he said quietly. "It is rare in this world, and that courage, it will be the key to what must come." Her stomach twisted. Courage had always been her guide, but she had never imagined it would lead her into a world of kings, curses, and forbidden paths. And yet, a small spark of hope kindled within her. Perhaps for the first time she could be more than a poor Omega. Perhaps she could be someone who mattered. They returned to the fortress in silence, the tension of the glade lingering in the air. Ilara could not stop thinking about the figure, the staff, and the strange power that had surrounded them. It was a reminder that the world she had entered was far more dangerous than she had imagined. That night, as she lay in her room, she could not sleep. The shadows outside seemed to whisper secrets she could not understand. The king's words replayed in her mind, and she realized that her life had changed forever. She was no longer just a poor Omega in a small village. She was part of a larger story, one that involved kings, curses, and powers she could not yet comprehend. And somewhere deep in her heart, a quiet ember began to glow. Courage, yes, but also something else. Something that drew her toward the Alpha King in ways she could not name, a pull she could neither resist nor understand. The child slept peacefully nearby, oblivious to the forces moving around him. Ilara watched him and whispered a silent promise. No matter what came, she would protect him. Outside, the wind whispered through the fortress towers, carrying a warning and a promise. The curse was awakening. The rogue forces were gathering, and destiny was weaving its threads ever tighter around Ilara, the boy, and the Alpha King. And in that quiet, heavy night, Ilara realized that her journey was far from over. The dangers were only beginning, and the bonds forming between her and the king and the child would be tested in ways she could not yet imagine. The night stretched on, full of whispers and shadows, carrying with it the certainty of challenges, the stirrings of hidden desires, and the knowledge that tomorrow their lives would change even more. Dawn broke over the fortress, casting long streaks of light across the stone walls. Ilara stood on the balcony, the wind tugging at her cloak, her eyes fixed on the forests below. The night had been restless, filled with whispers and distant shadows. The danger from the rogue forces and the awakening curse was closer now, and she could feel the tension building in every corner of the kingdom. The child, her small charge, and the heart of this storm, slept peacefully in the tower, unaware of the immense danger surrounding him. Ilara brushed a strand of hair from her face, taking a deep breath. Courage had carried her this far, but she knew that what came next would demand more than bravery. It would demand strength she was only beginning to understand. A shadow fell across the balcony. She turned to see the Alpha King approaching, his steps silent, his silver eyes fixed on the horizon. Kyle's presence was commanding, yet there was a gentleness in his gaze that only she could see. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice low but carrying the weight of authority. Ilara nodded, though her heart was racing. I will do what I must." Kyle studied her for a moment as if measuring her resolve. "Good, because today the curse must be faced, and today you will see the truth of who you are and why you were meant to be here." Ilara swallowed hard. She had thought she understood her limits, but now she realized they had been only a shadow of the strength she possessed. The child's safety, the fate of the kingdom, and the forces of magic beyond comprehension rested in their hands. They descended into the courtyard, where the air was thick with tension. The guards and warriors of the fortress were ready, their weapons gleaming, their eyes sharp. Kale led them to a circle carved into the stone floor, ancient symbols etched deep into its surface. Ilara's breath caught as she recognized the markings, protective wards and seals designed to contain great power. "This is where it will be decided," Kale said, his voice steady. "The curse will test us, but it cannot succeed if we act together." The air shimmered, and the figure from the glade appeared once more. Cloaked and carrying the staff of dark energy, the enemy's presence was like a shadow that stretched across the courtyard, cold and unyielding. "You have meddled long enough," the figure said, voice like wind through dead trees. "The child belongs to the darkness, and you, Omega, will learn your place." Ilara's hands clenched into fists. "I choose courage," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "I choose to protect him." The figure laughed, a sound that chilled the bones. But Kale stepped forward, placing himself in front of her, his eyes blazing with silver light. "Not today," he said simply. The clash was immediate. Dark energy struck the protective circle, and Kyle raised his hand, deflecting the attack. Ilara felt a surge of warmth and strength from him, a bond forming between them that transcended words. She realized that their courage, together, created a shield stronger than any magic alone. The child appeared at the edge of the circle, clutching his doll. Elara held out her hands, guiding him to safety behind the protective wards. "Stay there," she whispered. "You are safe." The enemy moved closer, their staff thrumming with power. But Elara stepped forward. She was small, vulnerable in the eyes of the world, yet in her heart, she felt something unstoppable. She focused on the courage that had carried her from the forest, from the shadows, from fear itself. She raised her hands, joining her will with Kale's, creating a force that pushed back the darkness. The figure staggered, surprised by the strength radiating from the Omega. "Impossible!" they shouted, but the power of the circle, the king, and her courage was undeniable. "Elara," Kale said, his voice cutting through the chaos, "trust yourself. You are stronger than you believe. The child, the kingdom. This is your destiny as much as mine." Elara felt a surge of energy, a connection to the wards, the child, and Kale himself. She realized something profound. Her bravery, her compassion, her quiet strength, they were not weaknesses. They were her power. And together with Kale, they could overcome anything. With a final, resounding cry, they pushed the darkness back. The enemy's staff shattered, the shadow dissolving into mist that scattered with the wind. The courtyard fell silent, the tension easing, and for the first time, Elara felt relief. Kale turned to her, his expression softening. "You have done well, Omega. You faced the impossible and did not falter. You protected what is precious. And in doing so, you have proven yourself more than any title could." Elara looked at him, her chest swelling with a mixture of pride and disbelief. I only did what I had to," she said, though she knew she had done more. She had discovered strength she had never imagined, and courage that could change the fate of the kingdom. Kale stepped closer, his silver eyes holding hers. "No, you did not merely do what you had to. You acted with heart, with purpose, with bravery that comes from the truest part of oneself. That is why you are here. That is why you were meant to be part of this story." The child ran to her, holding her hands tightly. "You saved me," he said simply. "I'm safe because of you." Elara knelt, hugging him close. "Yes, and I will always protect you, no matter what comes." Kale watched them, a mixture of awe and something deeper in his eyes. He stepped forward, placing a hand lightly on Elara's shoulder, a gesture of connection that carried more meaning than words could convey. "You are part of this kingdom now," he said softly, "and part of my life as well. Courage like yours cannot be ignored. It is rare, and it is precious." Elara's heart beat faster, not just from relief, but from the strange, undeniable bond forming between them. It was not merely respect or gratitude, it was something more, something profound that she had not anticipated. The child looked up at them both, his small eyes bright. "Will it always be like this?" he asked. Kale knelt to meet his gaze. "As long as we are together, we will face whatever comes, and together, we will protect what is dear." Elara smiled faintly, feeling a quiet strength settle in her chest. The trials of the past days had tested her courage, her heart, and her soul. She had faced danger, darkness, and uncertainty, and she had emerged stronger, transformed. The fortress, once cold and intimidating, now felt like a place of possibility. The king's presence, once overwhelming, now felt like guidance and protection, not domination. And the child had shown her that even the smallest life could carry immense importance and power. Kale's gaze lingered on her, a silent understanding passing between them. "The path ahead will not be easy," he said. "There will be challenges, decisions, and dangers, But you are ready, Elara, and together we will face them. Elara took a deep breath, feeling the truth in his words. She was ready, not just to fight, but to embrace the destiny that had chosen her, to protect the innocent, and to stand alongside the king as an equal in courage and heart. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the courtyard, a sense of peace settled over them. The rogue forces had been defeated, the curse pushed back, and for the first time, Elara allowed herself to feel hope. She looked at Kyle, and he looked back, eyes softening in a way that made her chest tighten. Something unspoken passed between them, a promise of trust, partnership, and the beginnings of a bond that would grow stronger with each trial. The child ran toward them, laughter spilling into the air. Elara scooped him up, spinning him gently. For a moment, the dangers of the night, the shadows of the forest, and the weight of the curse all seemed far away. Kale stood beside her, silent but present, his hand brushing against hers. The bond between them was quiet but undeniable, a mix of respect, trust, and something more profound, something that neither of them could fully name yet. The fortress, the kingdom, and the lives within it were safe, for now. But Elara knew that life would never return to what it had been. She had been transformed, not just by courage, but by connection, by choices, and by love that had begun to stir quietly, dangerously, beautifully in her heart. And somewhere in the air, carried on the gentle wind, was a whisper of the future, of challenges to come, of bonds to be tested, and of a destiny that she and the Alpha King would face together, side by side, with courage, heart, and an unbreakable connection. Elara held the child close, her eyes meeting Kale's, and for the first time, she felt whole. The journey was far from over, but she knew now that she was no longer alone. She had courage, she had heart, and she had a bond that could withstand the shadows, the curses, and the trials of destiny itself. The sun shone fully over the fortress, promising light after darkness, hope after fear, and the beginning of a new chapter for Elara, the child, and the Alpha King who had stepped into her life, forever changing it.